So one of our panelists from the previous session is now joining us for an individual session. We have Renaud de Viel Castel, CEO and Head of Global Expansion at Rubicon, joining us to talk about smart city and circular economy using technology to bring visibility, transparency and traceability of the waste and recycling streams. Let's welcome Renaud with applause.
So thank you very much for coming. This was me without the beard. We have to do something about that. So I'm going to take only a few minutes to talk to you about this topic, about how technology can bring visibility and transparency around the waste streams and traceability. So, but first I'll quickly introduce the company. Rubicon is a tech company. It's a US company. I'm the COO, and I also oversee our global expansion efforts. It's a company that went public about a year ago on the New York Stock Exchange. And this company has a mission to end waste. So for those of you who were at the earlier panel where we talked about smart city and waste, I may sound a little bit like a broken record because I'm going to say a few things I've already said, so I apologize for that. But our mission to end waste is a pretty ambitious goal, and we don't pretend that we're going to resolve this overnight. But we work with both businesses and with cities, government, municipalities that share that goal of ending waste. And it's a mission that people didn't really care that much about before. It used to be out of sight, out of mind, whether you were a citizen and you took your trash out, somebody picked it up and you didn't think about it anymore. But evolution has that people are now thinking about, hey, is the effort I'm putting into recycling actually worth anything? Are they actually sorting my waste, or the recycling bin that I fill up once a week, is it actually going to be recycled? And this is something that more and more people expect answers about. Whether they're citizens and confronting cities about, hey, what's going on with my waste, or if it's consumers asking businesses, hey, what's going on with the waste that you generate as a company? And so we see through ESG reporting or other sorts of reporting, companies have a responsibility, municipalities have a responsibility to communicate on the progress they're making towards more diversion, more recycling, less landfill. And that's a metric that is expected from, if you're a company, from your consumers, from your customers, from your employees, from your board members, from your investors. So there's all sorts of reasons why it's becoming more and more relevant. And so these companies, these municipalities, they set up these ambitious goals around zero waste, around eliminating waste, around improving recycling. And so sometimes they have ambitious goals by 2025, by 2030, but do they really know how to get there? Do they understand where they stand? If they want to be there and they're here, that's going to be one journey. But if they're actually there in terms of recycling rate, it's a different journey. So that's what, as a company, we like to think is that we bring that accountability, that visibility around the waste stream. So I'm going to talk more about municipalities because it's more relevant here as we are talking about smart cities rather than businesses. So municipalities, we have a bit of a different approach. And the reason I'm here is to give you my perspective. That doesn't mean it's the best way to go about it, but it's the way we approach things, and maybe it'll resonate with some of you. So when we go to a city, and we've deployed in over 100 cities plus in the US, we've deployed also in Japan in over 15 cities, we try to take a humble approach where we say, okay, what are the challenges that you have as a city? And often they think we're just going to talk about waste, but this is where they're wrong. We're going to talk about other things too, and I'll get to that. So when you ask this question, it's a preferable approach rather than going in and saying, this is what you need to do, I know what I'm talking about. Every city is different. So maybe I have a solution for a city that requires some customization for another. But that's the approach, is what are the challenges? So I'll give you an example of a challenge. I'll give you several examples so that it resonates and we're talking about something that's tangible. But one city was sharing their concern about the rate of recycling and contamination. So how can we help with that topic? Well, there's one thing I started asking is, how many trucks do you have? I have 100 trucks, okay. With these trucks, they're trash trucks, right, okay. What do? They pick up trash. Right, okay. What else do they pick up? Trash, they're trash trucks. Well, could you imagine that this vehicle, the trash truck, is quite particular? Why? Because it's the one vehicle that will roam every street of your city at least once a week. So maybe you could use this truck to not just pick up waste or recycling, but to pick up data points. Data that is relevant to you as a city that could help you be smarter. So one example is, well, we're looking to improve recycling, but we don't really know where to start. Well, maybe if I can deploy some technology inside those vehicles, I can make these vehicles mobile data centers that are collecting data around maybe the bins. Because in that particular case, that doesn't apply to every city, but in that particular case, that city had 2 bins for every household. One was green for waste, and one was blue for recycling, for cardboard. So we would be saying, okay, well, we're going to teach our algorithm to first recognize what a bin is, second, recognize the color of the bin, and then we'll get into more details. So that first ability to use that truck that's going to go in every street, it doesn't have to stop, it doesn't have to take a picture, it just recognizes using AI, image recognition technology, to identify all these bins. So now, if I can recognize bins and I can recognize the color, then I can tell you basically which neighborhoods are good at putting both bins out when it's recycle day or not. So now I know who recycles, who doesn't recycle. And I don't mean it in necessarily if Mr. Joe recycles or Mrs. John doesn't. The point here is that I can get you a heat map of your neighborhood and tell you this is the area where people could recycle more. So with that information as a city, you can decide, okay, I'm going to communicate more to these households. I'm going to try to get them more sensitive to recycling. That's one way to approach it. So the point here is that you didn't have to pay some expensive auditor to go and in every street and take pictures. You just you leverage the asset you have already, that vehicle. You put an inexpensive camera in there, and then you use the power of the algorithm to get you that data point that's relevant to you, and eventually now you know where you knew where you wanted to be, but now you know where you are. Now you know on a daily, monthly basis, you know, how good are your citizens at actually using that blue bin. But then came the other issue was, well, they use the blue bin, but it's contaminated. So here's the idea. You put another little camera inside the hopper where the trash or the recycling in that case is dumped, and you teach the algorithm to recognize what a trash bag looks like. Sorry. So now you know you knew now who was recycling, who wasn't, and now you know where it's contaminated. And that, again, you can use this information to help get people a better understanding of, hey, you're actually, you know, when you're contaminating, this is the trickle-down effect that you're having on our recycling abilities. Another issue that's has nothing to do with recycling, but with sustainability, that is really recurring from a city to another, and that is potholes. So again, you leverage the fact that you have these vehicles roaming streets every week, and another camera and another algorithm, and now you teach the algorithm to recognize potholes. And that will save you money because people start calling you all the time. You can be proactive, you can save lives, you can do a lot of things by taking care of your potholes. And that's pretty much something that you see around the world. You can detect all sorts of things, illegal dumping, it can be damaged curbside, it can be all sorts of things. So it was an interesting journey, and these are things we do. This is not, something we aspire to do. Identifying potholes or contamination is something that we've deployed in many cities. The point here is that you can have conversations that start around waste, and then because you listen to what the challenges are for all these municipalities, then you can start extrapolating from that and being able to use this data to make it relevant for the city to eventually reach their goals for their citizens. So this was just an idea of how you can leverage a fleet for municipalities, but ultimately it's all about this data that you collect and the level of contamination. All these various data points are helpful reaching out these goals. So we keep this approach of let's just listen, let's talk, let's preach, let's talk about our story. Let's try not to sound like we're trying to sell something. Let's just take a more of an approach of what are the actual real challenge that these municipalities have. And I could talk about the ones that the businesses have, but that would be a different conference. And let's see if we can adapt. And image recognition has been one way to adapt to the various challenges that all these cities around the world have. And I can tell you, in Japan, they have very different challenges than in Phoenix, Arizona. So that was it. I hope this was interesting to some of you. And if you have any questions, you can ask now, or you can come see me later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renaud. Do we have any questions for Renaud? Use this opportunity if you feel like it. We'll still have like 3 minutes left if there are any questions. Yeah, maybe a quick one.
Hello. Do you have technology to me as a citizen to follow if my recycling bin really goes to the recycling factory or not? Because I think in Central Europe it's a huge question. Okay, I do all the work, I recycle, do everything, but is it really get recycled?
It's a very good question, and it came up earlier in the panel for those of you who were there. I think I said earlier, it used to be out of sight, out of mind, but people like you, they want to understand, I'm making all these efforts sorting. Is it actually ending up in the landfill? And I think, so yes, there is tools to address that, and I'll get to that in a second, but I just want to give a little bit of context. When you look at who collects your waste, usually it's waste management companies. And the profile these companies have, the way they're set up is typically they own vehicles, they have drivers, and they own landfills. And the waste that they take to the landfill, they charge by the ton. So it's very similar to when you have maybe your skiing gear that takes too much space in your house, you put it in storage, and you pay storage for your skiing gear to be stocked and saved there, right? Stored, that's the word, stored. And you pay every month rent for storage space. Well, when you think about waste, it's very similar. You pay every week or every month a fee for your waste to be stored, buried. That's what the typical business model has been. We have a different approach because we don't own landfills, so it's not in our incentive to bury that waste and charge you for it. Instead, we're trying to adapt our model where the more you recycle, the more we get paid. So the point is, it's not just about saying that, it's can you also communicate that with your citizens? And we had that challenge in Japan, where what they basically offered and we customized it for them, is a portal for the citizens to log in and have access to all sorts of actionable information, such as, hey, I want an extra pickup, hey, I want to report that the bin was picked up and there was waste all over the ground. But I also want to have some reporting on the amount of waste that was actually picked up to the landfill and the amount of recycling that was actually taken to the recycling facility or the MRF. And so we can actually do some reporting on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis to show progress. And if the city's out there investing with Rubicon and communicating about, hey, we're going to bring visibility and transparency, it can't be just between Rubicon and the municipality. It has to be eventually shared with the citizens, because that's who they're doing it for, after all. So that is possible by simply deploying that technology inside those vehicles to not only track where what they're picking up, but also where they're going. I know we're running out of time. One thing I'll just add is that you get also the ability to fight illegal dumping. And that maybe is not so much a problem in many countries, but it is also in many other countries. And so when you have that technology that's there inside those vehicles that I described, it can also plug into the vehicle to get all the telematics around the vehicle. So now I know I can listen to the sounds and the vibrations made by a vehicle when it's emptying the waste. And if it's not in a geofenced recycling area, so let's say it's a truck that's picking up recycling, we can monitor where it's emptying, and if it's not emptying where it's supposed to, that's illegal dumping. So that's a way to guarantee that your recycling is actually going where it's supposed to.
Renaud de Viel Castel, COO and Head of Global Expansion at Rubicon. Thank you very much, Renaud.
Thank you. Thank you.